The wild NFL offseason continues here. And just as we talked about in the countdown to this show here, football is king, and there are no other moves that happen in any other sport that get the magnitude of the attention quite like the NFL and what is shaping out to be the best NFL offseason of all time. It continues with coverage here on Pro Football Network Daily. I'm your host, as always, Cody Roark, video host and NFL analyst at Pro Football Network. We have a special guest to join us at the start of today's episode of the show. He's got some busy TV hits coming up as well. He's our Pro Football Network NFL reporter and director. He is Adam Beasley, obviously a long time covering the Dolphins beat. Bees, the optics here for the Miami Dolphins in the last 2 weeks have suddenly changed with two power moves in the last 24 hours. Teron Armstead now a tackle there for them, and now they big-time trade for Tyreek Hill. How you doing, man?
Trying to catch my breath, Cody. It's been one hell of a week. Like, think about this. What is it? It's 2 o'clock here in the East Coast on Wednesday. So nearly 7 full days ago is when the league year began. And of course, a lot of those deals were already done and they could only be made official at 4 p.m. last Wednesday. But think of all the seismic changes in the National Football League in the last 7 days, and the hits just keep on coming.
The NFL Richter scale has definitely been a 10.0 so far this offseason. Tommy Garrett and I were on a PFN Daily Spaces a little bit earlier on Twitter, and one of the things we talked about too, just a couple of weeks ago, I think there was a lot of uncertainty about what's next for the Miami Dolphins, especially talking about, hey, you need to add a wide receiver that has breakaway speed that you can complement alongside Jalen Waddle. Well, hey, they go out and they do that today by trading away, some assets. They traded away 5 assets, okay, 3 in 2022, a 2022 first-round pick, second-round pick, fourth-round pick, 2023 fourth and sixth-round pick. Now, Adam, obviously, this is a great move for the Dolphins, and they have loaded up on offense, especially with Raheem Mostert added as a running back, Chase Edmonds, and Mike Gesicki coming back, Jalen Waddle entering year 2, now Tyreek Hill. Do you feel like they gave up too much here for one player, though?
Well, not all first-round picks are the same, right? 29th overall is a lot different than 9th overall. They gave up way more to get Jalen Waddle last year than they did to get Tyreek Hill this year. They gave up 2 true ones to move up from 12 to 6 to get Waddle. So when you look at it from that lens, it's actually pretty solid value. Now, you see that first and the second next to it, it kind of makes you shudder a little bit. But the compensation the Dolphins offered was reportedly very close to what the Jets were offering. The Jets were offering a couple of seconds. So again, not all first-round picks are the same. There's an added kind of, when you do the value calculation, that's something you have to consider. The 4-year, $120 million contract extension that makes Tyreek one of the, if not the highest paid wide receiver ever to walk the planet. So they gave up certainly some draft assets, some draft capital to get him, but they also gave up a big chunk of their salary cap. Tyreek Hill has to work. He has to be really, really good. He has to be Kansas City 2020 level, maybe 2019 level for this trade to work. But when you look at all the pieces the Dolphins now have, Jalen Waddle, you mentioned, Mike Gesicki, who's a top 10 tight end split in the seam. They went out and they signed Teron Armstead late last night, one of the 5 best left tackles in football. They went out and they added 2 really good running backs in Raheem Mostert and Chase Edmonds. They have a fullback now. Really, everything is there for Tua Tagovailoa to succeed. There are absolutely no excuses anymore for him. He's in year 3. He's with the best offensive mind he's ever been surrounded by. He's got the most talent he's ever been surrounded by. He has had the most experience he's ever had. If he doesn't show up this year, I don't think he ever will.
Well, and Tyler Olson in the chat up above says, put up or shut up time for Chris Greer and Tua Tagovailoa. Matt Infante says, no more excuses for Tua. He has a very good supporting cast to prove he is indeed the guy, and the Dolphins still have 2 first-round picks in 2023 to potentially find his replacement if he's not, which I think it puts the Dolphins in a really good situation right now. And we're talking about it now. Now Tua's in a situation where he gets this year. He doesn't have to look over his shoulder, not like Teddy Bridgewater is going to come in and like creep that fear into Tua's mind here. I hope Dolphins, like I said, I watched Teddy Bridgewater. Dolphins fans should be concerned if Teddy ever has to play this season for them. He's a guy that you can win with, not because, though, right? So there is that I will throw out there. Now, in your opinion, we look at the AFC East. I still think everyone views the Buffalo Bills as, hey, they're still the top spot until somebody knocks them off. But now I think the Dolphins have a legitimate case to be the number 2 team inside that division, and they could potentially challenge the Buffalo Bills for that top spot. How do you feel about their placement right now in the division on paper, at least?
Well, I think you're right. The Bills are still the 600-pound gorilla in that division. That's not going to change so long as they have Josh Allen playing at that level and a defense that just keeps getting better. They signed Von Miller in the offseason. But I do think you're right. I think the number 2 spot is up for grabs. The Patriots, did they max out what they could do with Mac Jones last year? Is there another step for him? We don't know. We don't know what the year 2 development is going to look like for him. Certainly the second half of the season wasn't as impressive as the first half for Mac Jones. But I think you need to look at what the Dolphins are doing in even a wider lens. And you have to look at the entirety of the AFC. And you mentioned the 3 teams. I don't think the Jets, anyone thinks the Jets are going to be competitive in the AFC East. You look at the 3 teams in the AFC East. You look at the 2 teams, obviously, in the AFC South, Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. The Titans were, I believe, in the AFC Championship game last year. The Colts went out and got Matt Ryan. Then you look at the AFC North, loaded again. Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals were in the Super Bowl. I think the Steelers might take a step back. But then the Cleveland Browns went out and got Deshaun Watson. So you're talking about, of those 4 divisions, of those 3 divisions we just discussed, 8 of those 12 teams are going to compete for the playoffs. Oh, wait, there's more. There's the best division that I've personally ever seen, and that's the AFC West. Look, the Raiders got substantially better in the AFC West this year, and they might be a distant 4th. That's how good that division is. So at the very least, there are 11, maybe 12 teams in the AFC that you do not want to play. There are no bye weeks, really, unless you play the Jets or in the AFC South. There are no bye weeks anymore in the AFC. You're going to see a lot of teams, I think, bunched in the 10-7, 9-8, maybe 11-6 range. I think all those teams, because the conference is so deep and so good, we're going to see a playoff hunt like we've never seen before. I remember last year coming on your show every week and talking about how insane it was and how, there were 12 of the 16 teams still had a chance with 3 weeks to go or 2 weeks to go. I think it's going to be 12 of the 16 teams are going to have a chance on week 17 or 18 or whatever it is now. They've gone to the 17-week season. So it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be great. And I will say this, Tom Brady looks really smart coming out of retirement, going back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because there are like 4 good teams in the NFC. Like if you want a path to the Super Bowl, go to the NFC, because the AFC is absolutely, it's too full. It's loaded.
No, it's going to be an exciting gauntlet to watch. And look, I think it makes an additional playoff game now, especially in the AFC. I think it makes it a little bit more exciting, because I know we talked about, it wasn't as competitive initially in that wildcard round with that 7th seed getting in. But now, hey, with how top heavy the AFC has become, I'm excited. It's going to be an absolute blood sport in 2022. Adam, I wish we could just press the fast forward button, be there in the NFL season right now as is. But unfortunately, we're going to have to wait until the launch of the season in September. But in the meantime, check out Adam and all the Pro Football Network's NFL teams, Dalton Miller, Mike Kay, Aaron Wilson, Adam Beasley's work over at ProFootballNetwork.com. Adam, I know you got a TV spot here in a moment. Can't wait to see that as well. Good luck, my friend. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of the show.
And we're only 5 weeks away from the draft.
Oh, see, the NFL never sleeps. It never does. It is king in all things. It is Adam Beasley. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the show here. Now, with that said, Adam's got his spot on the TV spot. Let me welcome in my co-host, Tommy Garrett. As you all know, he is the Pristine Auction bad boy. He's the guy that funds Pristine Auction every single month, every single year. He's the guy that's a major contributor. If we're talking about donators, he definitely does that. But he's also your mother's favorite fantasy football analyst, and he is my best friend, my co-host here on the show, Tommy Garrett. Ladies and gentlemen, Tommy, dude, we've had a very, very busy day. And look, while we had Adam on the show, we got a lot of comments coming in here. Pro Football Network, obviously youtube.com/Pro Football Network. Keep your dials tuned in here. We do a live daily show, 2 p.m. Eastern time, talking about the biggest moves around the NFL. Plus, we like to give away jerseys, Tommy. That is the talk of the town right now, where whoever's tuning in right now, make sure you're subscribed here to Pro Football Network's YouTube channel. That way, once we hit 3.5K subs, we're going to do a jersey giveaway to one lucky subscriber here on the YouTube channel. So what a better place to be. Tommy, some, everything going on. Freddie Lee at the top says, let's get her done. Tommy, you said earlier up above, what a time to be an NFL fan. And then we had just Bo Gable saying this will be a tough offseason to beat in the future. Really spot on. You got to crown 2022 offseason is probably the best, most impactful, seismic offseason of all time. I think in any sport, like you could make the argument, it probably takes the cake here.
The NFL is drunk, and the Dolphins decided, hey, the next round's on me today. It's just incredible so far what we've seen. We've never seen this many big-time players moved. I believe it was I forget who the reporter was. Basically tweeted out and said like there have been 9 Pro Bowl players moved with a combined 39 Pro Bowl appearances once Tyreek Hill became a part of that. It's just a stupid offseason. I don't think it's done either, which is kind of scary about who are these other big time moves that could happen. I didn't see Tyreek Hill being a part of that, but like I said, the NFL pretty much said, hey, we're going to give you another shocker today. And all of a sudden, Tyreek Hill becomes a Miami Dolphin.
Well, our good friend, obviously Outlaw 2448 says, I hope the Finns choke. He says, get it over with. And what he means by that is he wants me to rip off the Band-Aid. Tyreek Hill traded away from the Kansas City Chiefs. I know Outlaw is a Chiefs fan, so obviously a little bit of a somber day in Kansas City right now. Now for them, they move forward with Travis Kelce, McCole Hardman. You know, they have some other guys contributing there as well. Juju Smith-Schuster was a key acquisition for them. They still have some moves to make in terms of securing up, obviously, Orlando Brown Jr. at the left tackle position for them. But it's like, okay, hey, they took a step back in terms of personnel, but they still have a chance to add it. Obviously, getting a first rounder, a second rounder, and a fourth rounder in the 2022 NFL draft, which is just a month away. I would not be shocked if we see the Kansas City Chiefs trade that second and fourth round additional pick that they've received to also get another additional spot to move back up into round 1 to maybe have 2 first round picks in this year's NFL draft. There is that, and they do have a chance to get a really damn good wide receiver with this year's draft class. Not to mention, we talked about Jamison Williams earlier. I know our good friend Swipe a Cam on our Twitter Spaces had talked about that, saying, hey, go get Jamison Williams. And as you talked about, could be a redshirt year for him. But you know what? You still have some pretty good talent with McCole Hardman, who now will be elevated in the role that Tyreek Hill was. And now he has a chance to prove that, hey, he was a good pickup for them. Because remember, they tried to make that move. They made that move because they didn't think they were going to have Tyreek Hill several years ago. So now it is McCole Hardman's time.
I mean, I'm skeptical to see what Mecole Hardman does. I think he's fine. Don't get me wrong, but I think he was better as a number 3. I don't think he's ready to be that. And even number 2 alongside Juju Smith-Schuster, there's still plenty more moves that need to be made. We know Marquez Valdes-Scantling is having a meeting today with the Chiefs. I don't see him leaving town. Look, at this point too, Will Fuller, I talked about him going to Cleveland. It just makes total sense to see Will Fuller now catching passes from Patrick Mahomes also at this point. So I think the Chiefs are going to make some additional moves. I think going after them in the wide receiver in the NFL draft makes a ton of sense. Well, you want to go with the Jamison Williams in the very first part of the draft. You want to try to go after a Christian Watson if he falls enough to them, because he now looks like a for sure first-round pick after performance he had at the NFL Combine, kind of backing up those numbers. There's a ton of guys in the NFL draft that make a ton of sense, but at the same time, it's like these draft picks are awesome, but you got to hit. Like, you've got to nail these draft picks. And the hit rate isn't all that great amongst these NFL teams. Like, the big ones stand out, but these guys miss just as much as everyone else does. So like, I love getting picks back. There is no replacing Tyreek Hill. Plain and simple. There's no one else like him in the NFL, and he's arguably one of the best deep threats we've ever seen in this league. Now Tua gets a chance to really kind of take advantage of that. We know how accurate he can be, especially on the deep ball. Led the NFL last year in adjusted completion percentage on deep passes of 20 yards or more. Can do the same thing with Tyreek Hill? We'll find out. But it's what he brings is the separation. No one is hardly a better separator at the NFL at multiple levels, whether it's at the stem, whether it's on a release, or at the catch point, than Tyreek Hill. So he's going to be a massive target for Tua moving forward. I think it's going to work out. You cannot be anything but excited if you're a Miami Dolphins fan. You also can't be anything but excited if you're a Denver Broncos fan, because this offseason could not have gone any better for you. Yeah. Getting Russ in there and then watching the Chiefs kind of lose all of this talent. It's been incredible to watch so far.
The pendulum swing in the AFC has been very brutal. Now, obviously, right here, this is a good image. This is probably Tyreek Hill to Jackson Mahomes saying deuces. He doesn't want to be around that anymore. Obviously, now he's going there in Miami. And you think about it, too. Let's talk about the Dolphins here. The one thing we talked about Tua Tagovailoa really needing is a deep threat, speed separator, guy who can create different looks. Tyreek Hill's addition to this Dolphins offense will open things up exponentially for them on the offensive side of the ball, because as we were talking about in our Twitter Spaces there, what did Tyreek Hill do? How come Travis Kelce has so much success? Because teams have to figure out how to deal with the deep threat speed that you have with Tyreek Hill. So it forces them to play deep while the underneath stuff always comes open there. So now it's going to open things up a little bit more for Mike Gesicki, who's ridiculous as is from his position. Obviously, him returning there. Now you add in pass catching backs like Raheem Mostert and obviously Chase Edmonds, who can contribute out of the backfield there for Tua. Durham Smythe, who's an underrated guy that can cross and obviously sit against soft zone coverages there. He's going to open things up. But now let's talk about, too, you still have Devonte Parker, who's arguably one of the best possession wide receivers in the NFL when you need him, especially on third down. Great red zone threat for them. Let me forget, we're adding in Jalen Waddle to the mix as well, who had an electric rookie season. all of a sudden the perspective on this Miami Dolphins team shifts in the favor of the national media's perspective here, where now people are viewing them as a potential contender in the AFC East, or also the number 2 team in the AFC East, which, I think by standards now, the additional game, there could be 2 teams in the AFC East to represent in the playoffs. We saw it last year with the Patriots. We also saw it with the Buffalo Bills there. Buffalo's going to be tough, though, too. But Miami, definitely, if the defense can play the way that they've been playing, how much of the philosophy really changes with the new defensive play caller. We know Brian Flores called plays defensively for them. He did a really good job on the defensive side of the ball for them. But how does that potentially change, though, with the new defensive play caller? Does it preserve your personnel is going to be the same, but obviously having a different play caller definitely impacts it. I mean, not to the extent I say if you have a new offensive play caller, like we talked about the Buffalo Bills in the PFN Daily NFL News podcast, when you go from Brian Dable to Ken Dorsey, Ken Dorsey was obviously a quarterback coach, passing game coordinator, and now the OC in Buffalo. He'll call plays differently than Brian Dable did. It's just the nature of the business. Their experiences are different. How they view the game is different, even though they have a similar philosophy in terms of offensive play calling. Same thing in Miami for the defensive side of the ball. But here's also another case, too. For Tua, it's going to be a brand new offense for him to learn. Like we said in the tour spaces, do not be surprised if the Dolphins get off to a little bit of a sluggish or slowish start on offense. They're not quite to what their potential can be just yet. It takes time.
I mean, don't forget, too, we've all pretty much forgotten they also signed Cedric Wilson from the Dallas Cowboys during free agency.
Everyone's
forgotten that move with the Connor Williams and Tron Armstead moves. Like, they are loaded on offense. Like you said, you got Tyreek Hill. They have Cedric Wilson. You've got Devonte Parker. Now you bring in Tyreek Hill. You've got Mike Gesicki, Durham Smythe. I'm still a big fan of Hunter Long. I thought he was going to take a step forward. He kind of seemed like the ace up the sleeve in case they weren't able to bring back Mike Gesicki, at least on the franchise tag. You also have in Raheem Mostert, who had a ton of success in the same Mike McDaniel-style offense. You have Chase Edmonds. Like, he went from having, Elijah Mitchell and Raheem Mostert alongside Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and George Kittle to now having Raheem Mostert, Chase Edmonds, and now Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Mike Gesicki, and not to mention, Devonte Parker and Cedric Wilson out there on the perimeter as well. Like, the Miami Dolphins now probably have the fastest team in the NFL. You go back over the last 2 seasons with the NFL Next Gen stats, like the 4 fastest ball carriers have been Raheem Mostert and Tyreek Hill. Like, you can't match this speed. Also, we haven't even talked about it, like, at that point too. Jalen Waddle, we know how quick he is on the field. Like, this is stupid what they've been able to put together. I love it.
Well, and obviously for our good friend Outlaw 2448 diehard Chiefs fan, what would make you feel better here, Outlaw, for the Chiefs? Like, what move could the Chiefs make, whether it be the NFL draft, that will make you feel a little bit better? Like, it's hard getting rid of a guy like Tyreek Hill. I mean, there's no replacing his production. You're going to have to bounce that. Patrick Mahomes in this Chiefs offense will have to spread out that production amongst various guys, which the hope is that they can do that. They're going to need more contribution out of the run game from Clyde Edwards-Helaire, obviously. Darrell Williams, I think they just need to continue to bring back. I don't know if they've brought him back officially yet, but in my opinion, he needs to be their starting tailback. And look, Jerick McKinnon is also another guy that came in, I feel like adds more value than Clyde Edwards-Helaire does. So,
and he's also still sitting out there.
You're looking at that Clyde Edwards-Helaire pick. I'm just like, you know what? Not sure.
Edwards-Helaire never should have been taken in the first round. No. Like, let's be clear. Like, the Chiefs were coming off a Super Bowl and felt they had, okay, this is a screw it pick. We can do whatever we want. It was a luxury item at that point. And reportedly, Mahomes wanted Clyde Edwards-Helaire because we had just seen him and that LSU offense destroy the rest of the college football and the SEC, and then beat Bama. Like, that offense was one of the best ones, if not the best offense we had ever seen in college football. One of those big pieces of that was Clyde Edwards-Helaire working out of the passing game and also between the tackles. Like, he could make you miss in a phone booth with his spin moves. Like, watching the game film of when LSU played Alabama, you were literally just watching almost half the first round picks in that one single game. You bring him in there, but he's struggled. Like, he has never looked like the top back on this team. And he's going to continue to have those. Like, he hasn't even played a full season yet. He's consistently getting hurt. Like, he's got to take a step forward because you're now less explosive. So who's going to step up now in the Kansas City Chiefs? I don't know. Like, I still have questions when it comes to their pass rush and how it's going to impact their secondary. I get bringing in Justin Reed, but there is no also replacing what Tyrann Mathieu brought to this team. Do they got to bring back at that point, Melvin Ingram? Do you try to go after maybe like a Jadeveon Clowney, who is still sitting out there in free agency, to also at that point benefit the pass rush? You've lost pieces when it comes to cornerbacks. Yeah, Ladarius Sneed looked really good, but you lost Chardavius Ward to the San Francisco 49ers. So for me, like the Kansas City Chiefs, the team they were when free agency started, they are a lesser team right now. They've got to nail the rest of these picks. Otherwise, the rest of the AFC West is quickly going to catch up on them. I brought it up during Twitter Spaces. I get Patrick Mahomes is great, and this might be a hot take, and I'm overreacting in the moment. But I think there's a very good possibility, or there is a realm of possibility where the Miami Dolphins end the season with a better record than the Kansas City Chiefs. It might sound hot takey, it might be an overreaction right now, but when you look at these two teams and who's gotten better and who's gotten worse, especially inside their own divisions, I can't help but wonder if the Miami Dolphins just got a lot better after this move.
And I will say this too, what is perceived right now as the Chiefs getting worse is still better than a lot of the bottom half teams inside the entire NFL, which is crazy. Like, that's how crazy it is. That's how strong the NFL is. And look,
how strong the AFC is.
The NFC right now, it's going to be a little bit of a cakewalk between 4 or 5 teams there. Outside of that, it is going to be absolutely brutal. Just the bloodshed there. I mean, it's like, okay, hey, looking at it right now, let's look at the NFC side of things. Maybe by default, and look, I think that's kind of a coin flip right now between the Minnesota Vikings and the Green Bay Packers, considering the Devonte Adams trade and what they decided to do in terms of adding guys around A. Rodgers.
That wide receiver room might be the worst in the NFL. Well, it's between them and the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
It's so bad.
So I think maybe a coin flip right now. I don't want to discount the back-to-back NFL MVP here, but Aaron Rodgers there, I think you can, for NFC North, there's going to be 2 potential representatives in that division inside the playoffs. Tampa Bay right now has got to be the evident favorite, though I don't want to sleep on the New Orleans Saints with their defense and how they've made life very miserable. The Falcons, we can say, are probably in the rebuild period right now. The Panthers, not a lot of optimism for what they can do this season. So I'd say, okay, there's one of your teams there is going to be Tampa Bay. Okay. Then you look at the NFC East. Dallas Cowboys. They have Dak. They have CeeDee Lamb. Michael Gallup's not going to be ready initially for the start of the season. I think there's a legitimate chance, too, that maybe there might be a little competition there, but the Dallas Cowboys are obviously the favorite. Don't sleep on the Washington Commanders. And I get it. Carson Wentz is a punching bag joke right now in the eyes of everybody, but they might be a secret good team there in that division. They might be a team that surprises, especially if Diami Brown can stay healthy. You have Scary Terry, Logan Thomas, J.D. McKissick returning as well, Antonio Gibson probably returning for them. The Washington Commanders, as much as I hate what's going on with their stadium and the fact that it's just a cesspool, you got poop falling from the ceiling on fans. Fans deserve better. They deserve a better owner. The Commanders still might be a pretty good team in that division. So I'd say,
even though the Eagles made the playoffs last year.
Why am I forgetting about the Eagles? I didn't even get to them. There's the Eagles as well with Jalen Hurts and some of the moves. They brought back Fletcher Cox after initially releasing him to save cap space. They've added guys. They've added Hassan Reddick as a pass rusher there. They have Devonta Smith, who's an absolute stud. I imagine and they have 3 first-round picks in this year's.
They also signed Zach Pascal, which I think went really under the radar. I liked him a lot with the Indianapolis Colts as a perimeter receiver. They still need some additional help, but I like the move of Zach Pascal pairing alongside Devonta Smith.
Yeah, and Freddie Lee says this was a great move by Miami. Rather Tua works out or not, landing Hill is a massive move on so many levels. And look, as Adam was kind of alluding to here, the Dolphins are also in a position as well where, hey, if it's not Tua, if Tua doesn't work out this year, they can go and maybe put themselves in a position with the capital that they have. I believe 2 first-round picks in 2023. They can trade those picks to move up closer, kind of what we saw the San Francisco 49ers do to move up to get into a position to take Trey Lance. So even if the Dolphins aren't picking in the top 10 or top 5, they have the capital to move up to do that. So they have options there at quarterback next year. I'm sure they have some contingency plans. I'm not sure any elite quarterbacks will be available in terms of NFL free agency next year. I think we've seen a lot of the movement happen now. There is also the fact too, and like I said, if the Dolphins want to take the gamble on this, Baker Mayfield is still a potential possibility for them regardless. So and I threw that out. I'm not opposed to that here. Outlaw 2448 says Cowboys are a secret bad team. I'd say that might be a fair assessment. Right now, the optics on them definitely aren't too positive right now. Granted, they still have CeeDee Lamb, but that's more pressure for him, for Dak Prescott as well. And Dak Prescott's entering a very unique time. So
you were bringing up the 2023 free agency class in terms of wide receivers. The way in terms of quarterbacks, if you're looking on Spot Track right now, Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones,
but watch him go play for Mike McDaniel in Miami.
Lamar Jackson. I mean, there are several names that are out there who could be potential free agents.
Could you see maybe Lamar Jackson maybe wanting to leave Baltimore to go play in a place like Miami? Miami all of a sudden becomes very appealing for a guy like Lamar Jackson with a balance. Now, I know the offensive line is building up. Obviously, I think Teron Armstead there is a great addition. I think they're trying to figure out how to find a little bit more solidarity on the interior. That's interesting, though. It says it hurts when reports come out that this wasn't about money. Tyreek Hill just didn't want to be a Chief anymore. Interesting enough.
And I don't know why, because like you've had nothing but success playing with Patrick Mahomes. Like you've been one of the best duos in the NFL during this time. Like there's only been 4 players since 1970 who have had at least 6 touchdowns in their first 6 years in the NFL. It's Randy Moss, Larry Fitzgerald, Marvin Harrison, and Tyreek Hill. Like that's pretty good company to be a part of. Like you're taking a massive gamble by going to the Miami Dolphins. Like I get you want the money and all that stuff, but do you want to move from being a potential like Super Bowl candidate to now you're like, looking to get into the playoffs? Like I don't know. Like it's a risk on both sides. But look, if he wanted out, then I mean I'm sure he's got his reasoning, but it can't be for a lack of success on the field.
Yeah. Above 66 says, good afternoon. Good afternoon, my friend. Great to have you along here once again for PFN Daily. And everybody, just a real quick reminder, PFN Daily, we are live every single day, Monday through Friday at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Excuse me there. Jeez Louise. Morning coffee kind of getting to me there. 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern time every single day here on youtube.com/Pro Football Network. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for daily NFL news and analysis, live shows here courtesy of us. And until we build up to the NFL draft every week on Tuesdays, you will get Draft Insiders hosted by Trey Wingo and Tony Pauline. You get that here on the Pro Football Network news channel here that we have here on YouTube. So appreciate all the support. And outside of that too, we also do a daily audio podcast, Tommy. It's been fun doing it. It's called the PFN Daily NFL News Podcast. It is separate from what we're doing here, but it is short, bite-sized, consumable content featuring the biggest topic around the NFL with thoughts and analysis from Tommy and myself. That podcast is available free and everywhere you get your podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. Make sure you follow and subscribe here today for access to that. And
I got a feeling I know what today's podcast is going to be about.
Easily. But also I want to throw a little bit of something out there too. If you want to have a chance to maybe double your entry for a chance to win a free jersey, make sure you go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave a 5-star review. Tell us why you love the show. Leave your Twitter handle in the review as well, and that'll get you an additional entry into any future contest giveaway that we do here on Pro Football Network. But Outlaw 2448 says, well, there was some talk about locker room and issues with Bieniemy after the season ended. Maybe there was some truth there. Tommy, do you remember some of the rumors coming out about Eric Bieniemy in a sense that maybe he and Patrick Mahomes weren't seeing eye to eye? Was it necessarily just that? I know he's back this year, but there's been a vibe that Andy Reid and them have been doing a lot to try to get him a job, to get him out of Kansas City. I don't know how true that narrative is, but looking at it from the standpoint, knowing what we know about the history of Eric Bieniemy, the amount of interviews he's had with NFL teams for head coaching jobs and hasn't simply made it to the second round or hasn't simply got one, kind of speaks volumes to maybe something that is going on behind the scenes there.
Maybe, like I said, that the whole Eric Bieniemy saga between head coaching and between interviews and not getting a job, it doesn't make a lot of sense one way or another. Like, I can't figure it out. Like, I'm sure there's a reason he probably doesn't have a job yet, despite, everyone saying, look, he clearly deserves one based on the performance on the field, which is like, you've kind of heard the rumors how he's not a great interviewer. Like, at the same time, I'm not hiring you based off your interview skills. I'm hiring you based on what you can bring to my team. So like I said, I don't know how much I buy into those narratives all the time. There's the history of kind of some things that have happened in his past. I get that, but look, we have all these players and all the things that happen, and yet they're still given all these jobs and all that. So I don't really know. Like I said, there's a ton of narratives that have gone on around this whole thing. Not a ton of it makes sense. Like, I don't, even if you did have a little bit of a rift at times, like, I feel like it's always going to happen between like a bunch of alpha mentalities in the NFL. When you're a top tier player, like, you want the game to be ran a certain way and scheme towards you, and the offense coordinator might see it a different way, but like, they've always had success. And at a certain point, you put your egos aside for the better of the team. Like, I can't see these guys having that much of a rift to where you'd want to split up. To me, I don't get it. It seems like a lot of noise rather than just news. But yeah, maybe we come to find something out here in these couple days. I'm sure the dirty laundry will start airing when these guys are on different squads. But yeah, I'm not really too sure how much stock I put into all of it yet.
Okay. Outlaw 2448 says Chiefs signing Austin Rader is probably the biggest news of the day. Interesting enough, because he's their former center. I know he spent some time with the Dolphins and the New Orleans Saints last season after they let him go in free agency last offseason. He's coming back, but, in my opinion, is he coming back to be the backup center to Creed Humphrey, who is arguably, you can make the argument, the best center in the NFL right now?
Oh, absolutely. In his first year, there's a very good case to be made.
You have Joe Tooney, who you just restructured his contract at the guard position. I don't see Ryder playing a really big role for them on the offensive side.
This is a depth piece. You're going to try to transfer him to guard, maybe? I don't really know.
I don't know. Like I said, Joe Tooney, I think, was pretty good for them at the left guard position. Who's their right guard right now? I can't remember off the top of my head. And I know that they have Lucas Niang coming back at the tackle position. I know they have that.
I mean, it's Trey Smith, I believe.
Trey Smith was pretty freaking good last year, so I don't see them moving him from the guard position either. So I guess he is going to be a backup depth piece there for the Chiefs, unless there's something.
I mean, if you want a center, just go out there and get J.C. Treader. He's still floating around right now for agency.
Yeah, it's not like they need it. Like Creed Humphrey's a freaking dog, man.
Yeah,
like,
dude's insane.
He
never should have fallen as far as he did in the draft.
Maybe the Miami Dolphins go after a J.C. Treader now. He's played in a similar.
If you're going all in at this point,
I'd
have to double check and see where the salary cap sits right now. But I mean, like I said, we've all say like that's a myth. So do whatever you want. If you want to bring in J.C. Treader, go ahead and do it because you're going all in right now.
Well, and Outlaw 2448 says mix of guys contributing. Lucas Niang. Yeah, there was a multitude of guys at the right tackle position. I believe you had Lucas Niang. Who is the other guy? I'm trying to remember. You had Mike Remmers at one point, which, in my opinion, Mike Remmers is obviously, you want to play him in the Super Bowl because you're going to give up sacks in that game to everybody, to Von Miller, to, Jason Pierre-Paul and Shaq Barrett. I can't remember who the other guy was. Was it Andrew Wiley? Andrew Wiley, that's who it was. Andrew Wiley was pretty solid, too, for them. In some regard.
I mean, the Chiefs completely rebuild their offensive line after the shellacking they got in the Super Bowl. Like, that was how the Buccaneers beat them. They beat them with pressure.
They made the big risk
didn't have a chance.
Though, right?
Like, it was one of the best performances by a losing quarterback was Patrick Mahomes in that game. I remember when he made that diving throw completely off the ground like a shortstop and hit the receiver like literally in their face mask. Like, that was how good he was, and that's what forced them to completely redo their entire offensive identity up front.
But remember the conversation, too, when the Chiefs did that? They released Eric Fisher and they released Mitchell Schwartz and everything like that. Everyone's like, oh, my gosh, what are they doing? And everyone's like, this is the biggest risk they've ever taken. And all of a sudden, they go out and they obviously Lucas Niang returning from opting out, his rookie season due to COVID.
Yep.
They built like a really pretty good offensive line there. And they were still there. I think the same perception right now could be said for them on the offensive side of the ball. They trade away Tyreek Hill. Huge move for them. But it could end up working out in their favor, too. There's still a possibility. As small as it may seem to, I think, many people, the Chiefs offense could maybe take the next step. Who knows? But here's something, too, about Tyreek Hill that's such a pain. And look, I've covered some speedy wide receivers. I'm a cornerback, Tommy. I've covered some of the fastest dudes ever. I covered dudes that had 4.4s. I had some help over the top, though. But here's the deal, though. Like, here's the one thing I want to pinpoint. This is what Tyreek Hill made for the Chiefs' offense to be so dynamic. Not only his ability to get behind defenses, but because of the fact that Patrick Mahomes is so elusive. When a play breaks down and he's running around, he's spinning left, he's spinning right, extending plays, Tyreek Hill's speed is a difference maker because if he's running vertical and has to stop due to Mahomes rolling out, he's running across the field there and he's beating guys in foot races. It is a difficult task. So Tyreek Hill definitely bought in with Mahomes' mobility and elusiveness, the dynamic that made the Chiefs' offense as deadly as it was. So you do lose that. Can McCole Hardman grow into that role? I think is a conversation we'll have, obviously, on the PFN Daily NFL News podcast a little bit later. So there is that. And obviously, Freddie Lee says, hit that thumbs up button. Anybody that's watching here on Pro Football Network Daily with daily live NFL news and analysis show, we get the fans, we get football fans and spectators, commentators involved. We're trying to build in a call-in line so you can call us and share your thoughts as well. There's a lot of ideas that we have here for the show. But yes, hitting that thumbs up button helps push us out in the YouTube algorithm, helps us get to more people that are interested in the NFL and the National Football League because Pro Football Network is the primary voice for pro football. And you get that every day here. Courtesy Tommy Garrett and myself. But Tommy, just still some more stuff going around the NFL. I mean, we talk about the AFC West a little bit here, and I did want to pinpoint too. And there's some social media clips, and obviously Russell Wilson, everywhere he goes, he's got his own video crew, which is great. The Broncos sent their Behind the Broncos documentary staff to film everything in the offseason. That is better than Hard Knocks, in my opinion. But Russell Wilson is already getting together with all of his offensive weapons, and they are throwing together in California. We're talking about Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler, Tim Patrick, Andrew Beck, Brett Rippon is appearing. You also have Josh Johnson, who's the now backup quarterback to Russell Wilson. He's there. Kendall Hinton, Hall of Fame quarterback Kendall Hinton is now there as well. They're putting in work. Albert Okwuegbunam at the tight end spot. Chemistry is super important, but now the Broncos getting to work, man, and Russell Wilson really doing it. Now this move with some of the pendulum swing inside the AFC West gives the Broncos a chance to make a name to compete for their top spot in that division like they did years ago with Peyton Manning.
I mean, that video of him throwing the ball to Cortland Sutton, that just instantly, every Broncos fan out there, like, I need to change my pants now at this point because that was just incredible. Like, his deep ball is one of the prettiest things in the NFL. The way that point just comes straight down. It's why we're so well with DK Metcalf all those years together. Like, this is a loaded team. Like, one of the things like we haven't talked about, like for me, one of the sneaky winners of this whole thing was Tim Patrick. coming off back-to-back 700-yard seasons. Like, he accounted for over 27% of the targets in 2020 and then 31% in 2021 when he kind of when he was filling in for injuries to Courtland Sutton with his ACL or Jerry Jeudy with his ankle. Like, when all those receivers are on the field, Tim Patrick was outplaying both of those guys and still seeing 18% of the targets. Like, he is going to take a massive step forward, I feel like, just alongside with Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. Jeudy being that route runner, Sutton being the deep guy, and then Tim Patrick kind of being that little intermediate kind of style player. And also, it's like, if you want to put a basketball pickup squad together, you're not beating what the there we go. We're
there
back.
we go.
We're
He's
back. No, you're not beating the Denver Broncos right now when it comes to, like, I'm playing NBA right now. They have one of the biggest teams in the NFL. I think Albert O, he's coming in at 6'5". Both Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton are over 6'4". Jerry Jeudy's kind of right around that same area. So, like, this is just a gigantic team. And you're giving them Russell Wilson. Like, you can't help but be excited right now for the Denver Broncos and see him getting this repetition in early. It's not surprising. This is what Russell Wilson does when he kind of builds chemistry. He is a leader on these teams, and guys want to get better alongside of him. The sooner they get these reps in together, the quicker they're going to get off on the right foot in this new scheme with the Denver Broncos coming out of week 1. It's going to be so fun to watch. I can't wait.
Mr. Unlimited.
If he cannot do that again, that'd be fantastic, though.
Hey, man, you know what? I like it. Let Russ be Russ. I'm
going to let Russ cook, but maybe don't do the Mr. Unlimited.
Hey,
tweet.
Russ,
I was good.
Russ backs it up, though. Like, Russ backs it up with his play. So, you know what? I get it. You got – I'll be concerned if Patrick Mahomes starts doing TikToks with his brother. I don't think he ever would. But anyways.
Between him and Juju and Jackson, can we just don't do that? Just keep Jackson Holmes away from the team. Like, I don't need that again.
I feel like this is Outlaw 2448 trying to talk himself into trying to find, like, okay, hey, you know what? Okay, here's a bright spot in this trade here. Patrick Mahomes without Tyreek Hill, 1,700 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception in 5 games with a 103.1 passer rating. So there is that. And he says
we are watching Chiefs fans right now in live real time go through the different stages of grief. Like, this is what's happening right now. Right now we're on the acceptance phase. We're trying to rationalize, but at the end of the day, like, you still don't have Tyreek Hill.
Now, like I said, I wouldn't sleep on the Chiefs still, despite that. You know, I think it's a big move, but we'll see how things happen. But, here's something interesting, too. Anytime that there's a trade, anytime there's a big move, it shifts what we call the betting odds around the landscape of pro sports here. Now, according to Caesar Sportsbook here, the Dolphins' odds to win the Super Bowl were 70-1 odds at first. They've now shifted to 40-1 odds. So not necessarily like a move that says, hey, they're going to be Super Bowl contenders in the eyes of sports books. However, being 40-1 odds is much better than 70-1 odds in the overall market. And it says while their odds to win the AFC, they improved from 35-1 odds to 20-1 odds. So a little bit of a shift here with that. Yeah. Then it said on the Kansas City Chiefs side of things, according to our good friends over there at Caesar Sportsbook, Chiefs odds to win Super Bowl at Caesar Sportsbook grew from plus 850 to plus 900, while their odds to win the AFC are now plus 500 from plus 400. Interesting turn.
So, what we expected: the Chiefs take a step back, the Dolphins take a step forward.
Yeah, and still ridiculous because the AFC is just so freaking ridiculous. And even like the Cincinnati Bengals too, they've bolstered their offensive line with obviously La'el Collins at right tackle, and I've seen some people saying that was not a good move for them. Like, what? Like,
no, that was a great move for him. The only people that are saying that are upset Dallas Cowboys fans. Like, that's the only people that are
very
upset
true.
About that.
Have you noticed too? And I noticed this. Everything as well. Outlaw 2448 says, I've gone through all the stages in like 10 minutes. So that's why we love you, Outlaw. You're my guy. I appreciate you tuning in on today's episode of the show as always. But have you noticed anytime somebody leaves, like Seahawks fans are a perfect example. Russell Wilson leaves Seattle and they're like, oh yeah, you guys are getting a decline at quarterback. F Russ. But it's like, you weren't saying that last year. You're like, we need to surround Russ with more talent. Russ deserves better. All of a sudden, the narrative changes. Same thing with like La'el Collins now. Like so many Cowboys fans like, oh yeah, he's awful. Good luck with him. Like what? Like the saltiness that we see from NFL fan bases is nuts. Like I'm sure there's going to be some Chiefs fans that go to the Dolphins. Oh, good luck with Tyreek. It's so weird. Fanatics, right? Fanatics is an interesting thing here.
It's like we said, the word fan is literally coming from the word fanatic or fanatical. Like there is a reason fans have that name. Like it's so emotional. Like the ebbs and flows of being a fan of a team causes people to say some things you probably don't wish you said and have some reactions that you don't wish you had. Like we see the videos all the time of people breaking TVs in their living rooms when their team loses on a last second shot. or
Look
on a
at
last minute
problems
drive.
if you do that. Like, invest
No,
in
but we
stuff
see it
that
all the time.
matters.
Like, it might be for the internet cloud, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it's like you still have these guttural reactions that we're seeing it right now where people are saying, hey, look, yeah, good luck with Tyreek Hill, blah, blah, blah. We got the best years out of him. We see the same thing happen in Cleveland with Baker Mayfield saying, hey, good luck. We didn't want him anyway. Yeah, okay.
OBJ
Like,
goes on to ball the heck out.
Exactly. Like, it's so emotional right now. Let everyone come back down to reality in a little bit of time. Like, the NFL fan, I know from fantasy itself too, like, no one is better collectively at overreacting in the instant something happens than the NFL fan. Give it some time to smooth out and see how everything shakes out. Then let everything kind of get answered on the field. Up until that point, we're all just sitting here guessing at the end of the day.
Says, I've seen more people upset with Veach than Hill or the Dolphins, and rightfully so. I think that there's always been some kind of concern a little bit about the Kansas City Chiefs internally, maybe how they do it. Like, it's very like business. Like, for example, like letting Tyrann Mathieu go without even contacting him, without even giving him a deal, by going out and making a move for Justin Reed, who we have nothing against, by the way, great player.
Absolutely.
Tyrann Mathieu was a culture builder and was an intricate part of the identity of that Chiefs defense, and still kind of a very shocking move at this point.
Look,
but that's the NFL
Chiefs
business side, though, and it's
think of the Mount Rushmore of the Chiefs of this recent era. And that was Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and Tyrann Mathieu. Two of those are now gone.
Yeah. I mean, could you even say, like, okay, if we do like a Mount Rushmore of 5 people, who'd be the 5th out of
Andy
all those
Reid?
names you mentioned? Oh, yeah. I mean, Andy Reid is going to be I think when it's all said and done, is going to be the number one guy on the Chiefs Mount Rushmore list there. So in terms of players, though, Chris Jones, I don't know about that. Can you make it a defensive guy?
I mean, I already put Tyrann Mathieu on there.
Well, I mean, like a defensive interior guy. Chris Jones is there.
Sammy Watkins makes sense.
Sammy Watkins was very underrated in his time, especially in the playoffs. Like I said.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, and he wasn't even on the team last year when he was there, even with the team. Like, you knew Sammy Watkins was going to ball out in DFS. You always started Sammy Watkins in week 1. You put him on your lineup because at that point on, you never even knew if he was going to suit up onto the field because of his hamstring issues. Same things that popped up last year with the Baltimore Ravens.
Ooh. Remember who is the running back that was in the Chiefs Super Bowl victory against the 49ers? It was a Williams. It was
Damian Williams.
Yeah, Damian Williams. Like, remember him? Like, you could have made the argument
honestly
he
could have been Super Bowl
won.
MVP.
Exactly. And they let him go. I was shocked at that. I know he sat out due to COVID, but then they like moved on. I understand that. That's probably what kind of put the nail in his coffin with the Chiefs. But I was like, man, if they would have kept him, I think that things would have been like, you had the two Williams connections, the Damian and Darrell, unbelievable. I think
Damian Williams is now down there with the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of people didn't see that one.
I think people are wondering too about the Falcons. I think some people are saying, hey, the Falcons themselves are saying, hey, we do not consider this a rebuild. I don't know what you do
You're in denial
when you trade away your franchise quarterback to the Colts, where now he elevates the Colts into prime position. There is that. So there is that. I will say that. And then Outlaw 2440 says, I will jokingly tell Dolphins fans to eat trash, but I understand why this happened. I'm not mad at anybody. I never understand the vitriol when these things happen. Like I said, I think it's the emotions too, the emotions and moves that happen from people. Here's another thing too, Tommy, that I hate the most about social media, and I hate the most about overreactionary fan bases. Okay, you see Russell Wilson throwing with all these guys. Jerry Jeudy's not there. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's a bad look that Jerry Jeudy's not there. Jerry Jeudy's dealing with a personal family matter right now. And it's like, here's the deal too. It's the offseason. Jerry Jeudy, out of all those guys, in terms of the receivers, also has a daughter that he's taking care of too. Like, it's March. Are we really overreacting? Is the Broncos fan base really overreacting the way that they are about Jeudy not being at one of the many throw sessions that will be happening? Jeudy will be at the rest, like taking care of a personal family matter with his mom, who obviously I think had some sort of medical thing because there was a balloon that said, get well soon, mom. Obviously, our T's and P's are with Jerry Jeudy's mom at this time. But it's like fan bases take it just to the next level doing that here.
I've said the same thing when it comes to fantasy football. There's a reason some players cannot stand fantasy football and they make jokes and crack side jokes about fantasy football and all that stuff because honestly, these like fantasy managers put so much effort and care into these teams. And then the minute a player has a bad game, they're adding him on social media and just flooding their mentions saying, "Oh, you lost this week for me," just being just keyboard warriors. Like,
quit
stop.
social media if you do that stuff.
Exactly. And that's my thing. It gives everyone just such a bad rap. That's why I love guys like Austin Eckler who have truly embraced fantasy football. I mean, my God, like Austin Eckler last year with Liz Loza over at Yahoo Sports, they literally won an award for the best live short fantasy football program. Like, he is a decorated fantasy football analyst just as much as he loves the community. Yeah. And then you see guys like Josh Jacobs who would sit there and kind of poke at the community saying, "Oh, we'll see what happens," and then making fun of the responses. But it's like social media has made it so easy to get in contact or to reach out as close as you can to some of these celebrities and people you watch on your screens. And it's very dehumanized the athletes because you don't see the player. You just see the number and the team on their jersey, and you forget about the player. And they have these instant reactions to bad games, and it just makes everyone look bad. Like, just put your phone down, put away Twitter for a little bit and step away.
24-hour rule.
Same thing with these kind of moves.
Yeah, it's the 24-hour rule. Like, the first 24 hours, something are, emotional overreaction. Take 24 hours and then have the conversation. I know that's like when I was coaching, I used to tell parents all the time after a game, whether we win or lose, if their kid didn't get playing time, they want to come, like, talk to me in 24 hours. We'll have a conversation. Like, don't talk to me right now. Like,
there is always that person, like that guy on Twitter. Your daily job is to never be that person on the internet. Yeah, that's it.
You don't want to. Keep it simple. RC says, are the Dolphins in play to get Baker Mayfield or Daniel Jones? I don't think this year, right? I think that we could see a real legitimate possibility. And I want to take a look here at the Pittsburgh Steelers, potentially the Seattle Seahawks after next year. Or even, maybe Miami. Like I said, I've thrown out Baker Mayfield there for them. If Tua doesn't work out in Miami, do you want to go with a guy like Baker Mayfield, or do you want to take a chance on one of these, potential quarterbacks in this year's class? Here's the deal. These no quarterback, no first-round pick is ever a guarantee, like in terms of how they're going to be, whether, what kind of career trajectory they will have at the professional level. It's a crapshoot, and a lot of it's going to be contingent upon the environment that a player goes to, the pieces around that player, and also their willingness to put in the work. That's another nature to it. You can't just show up and expect to be great. You have to put in the work to do it. I could see Baker in Miami at some point, maybe after next season. I don't think it's going to be this season. I think they're all in, especially if they're paying Teddy Bridgewater $10 million, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's going to be Tua's year, and then I think they'll evaluate afterwards. But I could see definitely Baker Mayfield in Miami after 2022. But the realistic spot that I could really see him is definitely in Pittsburgh. I think he's an evident, better option than Mitch Trubisky. But then again, it's like, you know what? It is what it is.
Look, if Mitch Trubisky balls out and he shows that he learned a lot playing with Brian Zabel and Josh Allen, then we all owe him a massive apology, because it truly was Matt Nagy's fault up there in Chicago. So I'm hopeful, optimistic, maybe just because I am a Steelers fan at the same time, that Mitch Trubisky can kind of pick it up. But I mean, he can't be worse than what Ben Roethlisberger was last year, when he had the second lowest intended air yards for every attempt and got the ball in like less than 2.3 seconds per throw. Like, you're not maximizing your team at that point. So if Mitch Trubisky can be better, kind of incorporate more of that play action, kind of maybe take some shots with Chase Claypool, I think they could be better. But I mean, obviously they're going to have their eyes set on Baker Mayfield. They've watched him intimately inside that division for multiple years. So you never know where he's going to end up. I thought it was funny. It was I think it was Aaron Wilson. I think it was him that put the article out about the mutual disinterest between Baker and the Carolina Panthers. That article just blew up, and mutual disinterest, like, that is absolutely going in my vocabulary from this point forward.
I like that. There's a mutual disinterest. That is a good one there. So obviously, hats off to Aaron Wilson. Hey, Tommy, guess what's starting up here in about 8 days? Okay, you have the USFL training camp, which is kicking off. We're just about maybe 5-6 weeks away from the USFL season starting. Obviously, for me, I'm a Birmingham Stallions guy. You're a New Orleans Breaker guy. Yep. We have our fan base here. If you haven't let us know who your team is, I think Outlaw and I are Birmingham guys, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. But the USFL, they will start using NFL developmental refs in April. This is great. Still, in my opinion, NFL, they need to find a way to go full-time officials. I think in every sport too, like every sport needs full-time officials. That's an issue that we see at the NCAA level with March Madness. You have these old officials that literally can't even keep up with the game that are there, that are like paralegals or like vice principals and things like that. It's super weird there. The USFL is also doing something very interesting as well. They are adding some new rule twists to it. Mm-hmm. They're adding 3-point conversions, and a best of 3 overtime among its rule twists. And what it says right here, and I'll read it from the Associated Press, it says that the new league released its rules on Wednesday, explaining several twists to the traditional rules in the NFL and college football. Scoring teams have a third option to attempt an extra point. A successful scrimmage play from the 10-yard line equals 3 points. So if you want to have a 3-point conversion after a score, you have to move to the 10-yard line and score from there. A second option is to retain possession after scoring. Will be converting a 4th and 12 from a team's 33-yard line. That's a little
4th and 12 is such an arbitrary number. Like, why 4th and 12?
Why 12? Yeah.
Why not 4th and 13? Like, I don't get it.
I mean, why not 4th and 14? I feel like 4th and 14 would actually be a little bit more synergetic for that. But it says in overtime, each team's offense will alternate plays against the opposing defense from the 2. I don't know if I like that. Each team's offense will alternate plays against the opposing defense from the 2-yard line. I don't like that. It's
essentially just constant. It's essentially kind of what they do in college football. Like after the second overtime, then it's nothing but 2-point conversion attempts. And then that's how they kind of keep going further.
It says each successful scoring attempt will receive 2 points. The team with the most points after 3 plays wins, and the subsequent attempts become sudden death if a score is tied after each team runs 3 plays. The overtime period will extend until a winner is declared. I'm starting to understand that now. Okay, so you get 3 plays from the 2-yard line.
Yep.
If you score on the first play, you get 2 points.
It's like a hockey shootout.
Second, you get 2 points. Third play, you get 2 points. So you have a chance to come away with 6 total points if you convert in that situation. Then the other team has to get 6 points in order to win, or at least to extend overtime. I like that. That does make sense now. That's an intriguing rule play there.
We'll see how it pans out. I'm glad that the NFL can use the USFL as kind of some of this bit of experimental league. We see this happen a lot of times with minor league baseball, like with single A or high A, where they'll try out a couple different things and usually before implementing them into the NFL. Like, I'm not saying the NFL needs to change a lot of things. Like, I kind of like the way the NFL is. Like, don't ruin my damn game. But we know extra points, 2-point conversions, kickoffs, like that's something that they really want to tweak. The biggest thing for me in this one is the development of referees. Like, there is no reason the NFL, for how much revenue comes in between gambling and just from the TV deals, you don't have full-time referees. Like, what are we doing? So at least the USFL can be used as a training ground for these referees so we get a better product in the NFL. I'm all for it. Like, no one is trying to say that the USFL is going to replace the NFL. They're going to be the next big thing.
Ever.
No, that is not what they are here for. They are here to give us spring football and compete and be their own thing, while the NFL then takes off and be the mega thing that it is, throughout the rest of the year. So let the USFL be what it is. Hopefully it grows into something even bigger moving forward. They expand past 8 teams. These teams also get to be in their normal cities instead of all playing in Birmingham in the one hub's location. Like, I hope it moves forward and gets better and we kind of keep growing and it'll last more than just 1 year, kind of like what we saw with the AAF and the XFL kind of saw. Hopefully this moves forward. If these rule changes, we'll see what happens. Like, I'm not going to know until I see it take place on the field whether I like it or not. But look, if you're going to do something different, at least go all the way and be totally different. So I'm in.
Keep it simple. RC says, got to be honest, if an expansion league wants to make a dent in the NFL, they should compete head-to-head with the NCAA, capture the talent before it hits the NFL.
You'll never compete with the NCAA because there's not enough money in the USFL. No.
But NIL deals, though, they can still do name, image, and likeness deals, if I'm not mistaken, even if they're not like necessarily in the NCAA.
You can, but like I said, like the USFL is not trying to necessarily compete with the NFL. No one will ever be able to beat the NFL. Like, the only person who could hurt the NFL is the NFL themselves.
You know what the NBA just did, right? Launching this this kind of program where kids can come straight out of high school into this pro league and then eventually feed up into the NBA. Yeah, there's that. I mean, this can maybe serve as that, but then again, I feel like it is so risky, like getting some of the top players coming out of high school, jumping straight to a league like that. I think you really sacrifice their development because some of these kids coming out of high school have big heads, and college is a very humbling experience because you have the responsibility. You got to go to class. You got to maintain your grades, your academics, and you also have to learn along the way. Like, how many times do we see college athletes that have been playing, let's say 4 years, let's say they play out their senior year, they play four seasons at the NCAA level, top prospect, come into the NFL and struggle because of the fact that now they're being introduced to millions and millions of dollars that they do have. I think it's a risky proponent if they were to do that. I think it's risky in the basketball side of things. So basketball is a little bit different than football because you could be a really damn good basketball player and you could be younger than everybody else and lighting it up. So I see the optics on both sides of it. I don't.
There's also the injury risk too. Look what we just saw with David Ojabo. Like, any time that could happen to you during a game. Like, the NFL is just football in general is a very dangerous sport to play. Like, no question about it. We know the physical limitations that happen. What's that?
College weight programs, strength programs are super important.
Yeah.
And if you come into the NFL not strong enough, or to a pro league not strong enough, you could be talented, but if you're not strong enough, you're not going to make it. Like, they will cut you. Simply.
Yeah. I mean, not every player gets the ability to get the Alabama experience, because Alabama literally is nothing but an NFL program. Like, there have been several guys who have gone to Alabama and said, my 3 years at University of Alabama were the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And these guys are all pros or Pro Bowl style players in the NFL. Like, there is a total difference between how some of these teams are ran in college, where coaches can literally dictate every single thing you do throughout the day, versus if you went into the USFL or into one of these flyer leagues where you're being treated as a professional athlete, but you're also not getting that exact same rigorous structure you would find in college football, which really prepares you at that point for the NFL. So I think there's two different sides you can look at it. I think the more secure one obviously would be to go play college football. You're going to get a better training at that point. You're going to get the better probably nutritional routine as well. More eyes are going to be on you, because college football is, like, in my opinion, I like college football better than the NFL. Like, for me, I like that game better. So it's a matter of whether these guys want to go play in the USFL or they want to go to college. More than likely, at least at that point, you're also getting your degree alongside of it, unless the UFL is doing something to help with, like, some educational program as well. Maybe that's something to be considered. But I think more likely than not, you're going to see the top players still going to NCAA and then making their way to college, to the NFL. And then the ones that don't make it or are cut after, like, the first season, they'll feed back into the USFL and use that as almost like their last chance to prove something here, then try to move back on, like we saw a couple guys do with the XFL.
Keep it simple, RC says, except that Alabama can't produce quarterbacks. That's interesting. It's like, I think it's like,
yeah, Bryce Young, he's going to change that.
Maybe.
And Mac Jones, he did pretty well.
Hopefully,
Jalen Hurts, he's pretty good.
Hopefully it's sustainable, though, right? We're talking about, like, for Mac Jones, I think exceeded my expectations for his rookie season.
Yeah.
You can make the argument he was the best rookie quarterback in the NFL last year.
No, I don't think it's even close.
But, Davis Mills, might come in. But then again, sample size is very small for Davis Mills. Like, we saw a really great end of the season for him. But it's like, for Alabama and quarterbacks, it really is that whole entire – it's the A.J. McCarron theory, right? Remember, A.J. McCarron was just an absolute stud, and they're like, hey, he's going to come in and light up in the NFL. And it's like, hey, he's not even a starter for any team.
Yeah.
That, to me, I think is the interesting part. But we do see running backs, wide receivers. These guys –
it's essentially every other position.
As first rounders. How wild is it that Alabama produces the wide receivers that they do, and they don't have the quarterback repertoire to kind of back up the support that they get at the wide receiver position, when the reality is, too, wide receivers can do a lot for you, but if you don't have a guy that's good enough throwing you the football, it's kind of like this imbalanced theory that's happening right there. It's one of the weirdest things in all sports.
I mean, look at Greg McElroy. He was an Alabama quarterback, never did anything else at that point in the NFL. So there is a precedent to be said. Like, look, we could say the same thing about Ohio State. Like, Justin Fields is trying to break that entire mold of where Ohio State quarterbacks are going to succeed in the NFL.
The whole
I think
Cardale
the same thing's happened with Alabama,
like I said. Thing there.
Yeah, well, like I said, Dwayne Haskins there too. I mean, there's been several guys. JT Barrett never really did anything after that. There's a couple different situations. Yeah, with Alabama, like, Bryce Young is absolutely breaking that mold. He could very easily be that number one quarterback. Same thing with him. Then you got CJ Stroud. Like, he's probably going to be the number one quarterback when he comes out. Both those guys are coming from schools we historically have said have never had great quarterback play. Joe Burrow transferred out of Ohio State. So, like, there's some people that still love to try to claim him, even though, he got his success at LSU. But it's interesting. Alabama has yet to really produce that top tier quarterback play. Although I think that's kind of changing. Like, the SEC is just built differently, and Alabama wins on other parts of the ball. But yeah, I mean, look what Tua did when he had those guys on his team. Like, they have just a factory when it comes to NFL talent. Like I said, outside of kicker, which always kind of seemed to be a running joke at Alabama.
Yeah, no, interesting enough too. There's always the arguments that we see, like Saban has produced the NFL factory there, and fantastic coach. And I know there other coaches hate Saban just because, like, look what he's built. And, like, yeah, he's got the best recruiting in the entire country. Like,
for a reason.
People want to go to
guys want to go play there.
Yeah. It's like, can't be pissed at Saban for creating an empire that's just ridiculous. Like,
yeah, and then if Tua goes off this year, he's going to join that class of great Alabama players. Like I said, I've been higher on Tua, and that was before the Tyreek Hill trade happened today. So hopefully he kind of, like I said, joins and kind of breaks that narrative and kind of joins, like a Mac Jones, because some of these great Alabama players that have came out in recent years at quarterback position.
Yeah. I'm with you there, Tommy. Outside of that, everybody else that is here on PFN Daily, we just want to say thank you so much. We appreciate you tuning in on today's episode of the show. As we continue to grow, we have some big plans for the show. There might be a chance where we have a 3-hour live interactive show, commercial breaks, call-in lines for all of you to be able to call us. We're working on that. It is coming in due time. We have some big plans for the show. We want to thank you for being part of it. We want to keep you part of it going forward. So we appreciate the loyalty that we have from the avid listeners and viewers that do tune in, as is here. PFN Daily on YouTube. You get us every single day live, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Pro Football Network Daily, hosted by Tommy, Garrett, and myself. But in the meantime, too, we will talk about this Tyreek Hill trade and the PFN Daily NFL News podcast, which you can get every single weekday in the morning for your morning commute. Talk about the biggest topics, short, consumable, and bite-sized podcasts. You get that on your favorite podcast providers. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, follow button there, as well as here on the YouTube page as well. But with that said, that will end today's episode of the PFN Daily live show that we have here on youtube.com/Pro Football Network. Pro Football Network is the primary voice for pro football. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of the show.